I am not your friend. And if you get greedy and you decide to come back for more, don't.
Hey guys, Pete here. Today we got another installment in the series of cryptic teasers they've been putting out for the final 6 episodes of Better Call Saul. Those will be airing in just about 2 weeks, and even though there's not a ton to talk about here, this teaser did make me think about some of the previous ones and how that's all connected and what that means for the rest of the season. Also, they did make an announcement to confirm who will be playing the new mysterious character that Bob Odenkirk teased a couple of weeks ago. I'll be talking about all of that and speculating on the rest of Better Call Saul's final season, and if any of that sounds like spoilers to you, then this is your chance to leave. The teaser is a static shot of Saul's signature Bluetooth earpiece sitting on the desk of his office in the Breaking Bad era. The background is blurred, but it's easy to recognize the blue carpet and this angle from behind his desk that we've seen so many times. The only thing that happens is that the earpiece lights up like it would if he were receiving an incoming call. Someone is actually calling Saul, who may or may not be able to answer since he doesn't have this thing in his ear. The call coming in and seeing it sitting on his desk initially made me think of him leaving it behind when he left to meet Ed the Disappearer. But his office is way too clean for this to be happening after the Quite a Ride teaser from episode 405. This is similar to the other teasers we've had after the mid-season finale in that the imagery is more about the feeling of things coming to an end rather than a glimpse of an upcoming scene that you can expect to see in one of the episodes. What you see here, and the fact that it's in his office during Breaking Bad, ends up being less interesting than what you hear in the voiceover. In that, Bob Odenkirk says, "I am not your friend, and if you get greedy and decide you want to come back for more, don't." My immediate reaction to this was that this is Gene talking to Jeff the cab driver. With the tone and sound of his voice, it makes the most sense. He's issuing a threat, and he's trying to sound intimidating. That doesn't fit for what's going on in the immediate story. For instance, it would be hard to imagine him talking to Lalo this way. Gene said he was going to take care of the Jeff situation himself when we last saw him, and this could be the resolution of that. I saw a lot of people throwing out the idea that it would be a huge twist if he were talking to Kim. The idea being that something changes to where he's just done with her when they part ways. I don't believe this makes sense if you think it through. Sure, it'd be surprising, but Jimmy would more likely be heartbroken than vengeful if Kim did something unforgivable to him. I do think his inability to deal with what happened to Howard will lead to him becoming the Saul from Breaking Bad, and that Kim has to be out of his life for him to throw himself into it like that, but I don't see him getting to a point of threatening her and saying we're not friends at the end of their time together. Unless this is a performance or done for some other reason and we're just hearing it out of context, I don't see a path to Jimmy feeling this way about Kim. I've thought that we hadn't seen any Gene scenes yet because once that starts, they need to follow it through to the end. I do believe he'll resort to his old ways to take care of his problem with Jeff, and then this will be a huge part of what happens in the last couple of episodes at the end of the series. That requires that we spend more time in Omaha to see the setup and the payoff, all after we know how things end in the Better Call Saul timeline. This has been hinted at by Gene putting on the Saul-style red jacket in the poster, and then again in the Suits teaser, where you see the Cinnabon uniform hanging there in that progression of suits he's worn throughout both series. All of this seems sure to happen, but it doesn't seem like a complete ending either. I mean, it's possible that something goes wrong, and that's what ultimately leads to Saul's downfall, but that's kind of disconnected from everything that's happened on both shows in a way. Being Saul again, stepping back into that role, into that persona, has to bring him around to reckon with his past or make a decision about his future. He obviously looks like he's been suffering. Just continuing to be Gene doesn't seem very likely either, but one last scam against Jeff seems like something that would be really fun that you would do when you want to set up the conclusion. This idea has led me to wonder if the teaser where we see him return to Albuquerque and tear down the wanted poster is the actual end of the series, like they just already gave it away. When that came out, it was hard to decide if that was even something that would happen in the show, because it seems like you wouldn't want to give away the ending. And if he goes back to Albuquerque and there is this huge reward out for him, then that feels like an ending is near. Now that we've seen more than half of this season, the more I think about how much of the Jimmy we met back in season 1 is still in there during the Gene timeline. Because it's definitely not on display during Breaking Bad. There are a few moments where you could say, well, I suppose he seems like Jimmy in this scene, but on the surface, it looks like that part of him is dead and gone. If he did turn himself in, that would be a way that they could show that there was something good still inside there, even after all that time working for Walter White and all of what we've seen happen in the last 6 seasons of Better Call Saul. I've been thinking about that a lot, so I'm going to try to do a whole video about that soon. So now let's move on to the new character. It turns out that 89-year-old legend Carol Burnett will be appearing in this final run of episodes. The only thing they've said so far is that she'll be playing a character named Marion, which doesn't ring any bells or give away anything about what the character will do. Two of the more popular theories were that she might play an older version of Kim's mom or Judge Papadumian that Saul has mentioned in both series. In this show, actors' ages are almost unimportant, but Kim's mother wouldn't be anywhere close to Carol Burnett's real age in the Gene timeline. And I think if you're bringing in someone of this caliber, they almost have to be a brand new character. It's possible, but I'd be surprised if it turned out to be the case. Judge Papadumian would be funny for people who are really paying attention, but there would have to be a meaningful reason to be in her courtroom. And I don't really expect to spend significant time in court, but I guess we'll see how things develop in episode 8. Before the announcement was made, people thought this character might be a detective looking into Howard's disappearance, or a new antagonist in the Gene timeline since everyone else is likely dead at that point. Just as I don't expect to spend too much time in court, I also don't expect too much time chasing after Howard's killer. And if you need a detective, I don't imagine Carol Burnett would be your first choice. Jeff already seems like an antagonist in the Gene timeline, so I hadn't thought much about that theory either. Some other ones I saw after the announcement was that she could be Howard's mother, or there is a mention of someone who has a name that starts with M-A-R in Caldera's book. Remember, that was all in code, and someone in the real world figured it out, but you can't see everything in this particular entry. I'm not sure how Howard's mother would play a crucial role in what comes next. And the entry in the vet's book is interesting since it means that she'd be playing a criminal, but there isn't much there, and what is looks like it says they're locked up in the current timeline. Both of these are interesting ideas, but I don't feel too invested in either of them. Since we know we'll be skipping ahead in time, it's hard to say where this character fits in and what kind of part they'll play in concluding this story. To bring it back to the teaser, if it does come down to Gene talking to Jeff after they have their showdown, and if I'm right about that playing a role in setting up the conclusion of the story, then she could turn out to be Jeff's mother. Maybe she's pulling the strings and trying to get him to go after Gene in the first place. Or maybe he takes care of her and that's part of the reason why he's going after Gene. And then in the process of taking him down, he figures that out and that somehow changes the outcome of what he was going to do. I mean, if we're going to speculate wildly, then why not? The other thought I had when I first heard of this was that maybe she's Ed's wife or mother or partner in crime or something. And again, this has the added bonus of her being a criminal, which is fun, but also solves the problem of Ed not being able to appear if they need to use his service, since Robert Forster died in 2019. At the end of the day, those are the best that I could come up with, so this is probably a good place to leave things. Let me know in the comments what you think is going on with this teaser, and who you think Carol Burnett will be playing when her character's introduced. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.